What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're working on the V6 MR2 again. I got this NRG quick release hub that I'm hoping to install on the car. There's some hardware and whatnot. If anyone's curious, why did I go with this particular product? The main reason is that it was just laying around a couple years ago. The Miata was supposed to get a steering wheel, but we just decided not to do that, and it's just been laying around ever since. Now, my MR2 already has a aftermarket steering wheel in it, which will make the process really simple. One thing I am hoping to figure out is why the horn doesn't work. I was not the one who installed this, so I don't know why. My plan is actually to start over here on the other MR2, and the reason for that is that this car still has the original steering wheel on it, and so taking this apart is going to give me a really good idea of what should be there in the first place. I know I'm being a little cynical, but I have this feeling that I'm just going to get in there and stuff's not going to be how it's supposed to be. So this is going to give me a really good idea of, well, how it should be, and then hopefully for you guys watching, if you're using this as some like a guide to install a steering wheel, you have an idea of how to take off the OEM one. Anytime you remove an airbag, you always want to disconnect the battery from a car. I mean, this car actually doesn't have an engine in it right now, and I've already removed the battery, so there's no need to worry. The battery is actually sitting over there. And the other piece of advice I've been given is that you want to let the car sit for like 10-15 minutes just to make sure the system's discharged. I don't know how accurate it is, but it kind of makes sense just to err on the side of caution. The process of removing the steering wheel is pretty easy. You just take off that plastic cover that's on the side there, and then you're going to need a T30 Torx bit so you can undo the two screws that are on the side. You'll notice the screws don't come out because they have some like little plastic that holds them in place. The side with the cruise control, you don't have as much room to work with, but you can still easily get the stuff out. And once those are off, the airbag just comes on out. There's two clips you're going to have to undo. There's the big yellow one. The second clip, which is that little blue one, was a bit of a pain to get off. So what I did was I marked the steering wheel and then I undid the bolt. I left the bolt loosely on, and then I tapped the sides of the steering wheel just to kind of wiggle it loose, and then at that point I was easily able to pull it off. I had to hold the steering wheel in place as I removed that last little plug, but it was definitely worth it. The steering wheel is off the car. First thing that comes to mind is the fact that the clock spring is still on this car. I don't think the other car has one, but we'll check on that later because this is just kind of seeing what's supposed to be here. The horn system is just a circuit, so it's not really the most complicated thing, and when you push on the airbag in this car, that will push down on this and you'll see this little wire. So I'm assuming that's the ground, but anyways, that touches down and completes the circuit. I put the wheel back on for demonstration purposes and plug this in to show you guys how the horn works, but unfortunately it's not working. When I press down on this, all you hear is a click. That click is really faint. You probably don't even hear it on camera, and that's the relay kicking in. I'm not certain why the horn's not working now, because it did work in this car before. I mean, the engine's literally out of it, and it's in a million pieces, so it's probably something I took out at some point. I hopped on over to the V6 MR2. Taking this wheel off was pretty easy since it's held on with just 6 bolts. I could tell that the clock spring wasn't there anymore, so then I decided to take off the lower portion of the clamshell to kind of have a better look at the wiring. Oftentimes, people will just chop it off when they remove the clock spring. And of course, that happened in this case. I went ahead and connected the two lines together to see if the horn worked, and it did not. I then started on the low-hanging fruit, so I checked the fuse. That was good. I then made sure that there was power at the fuse box and at the plug that connects to the horn. Both of those checked out. The next thing I checked was the horns, and when I put direct power to them, they did not turn on. So I'd like to show you guys how I did that, and I'll do it on this car because the horns do work on this one, which is kind of funny because earlier it wasn't working, which tells me, I don't know, I have an issue somewhere. But that's for another day. The horns on the MR2, or at least the second gen, you'll find one on this side in front of the AC condenser, and then you'll find another one on this side as well. I connected the negative to where the plug was, and then I connected the positive just to the body of the horn. I got the positive connected, here's the negative, and it's gonna make the sound. At the minimum with the V6 MR2, I can say the horns do not work. And then obviously with this situation up here and the wiring being hacked up. So those are the two reasons why the horn doesn't work that I know of. I do kind of feel like this is a bit of a fail because I'm not gonna get the horn working today, but honestly, that's just the way things go sometimes. I won't be installing this quick release as well. What I realized is that if I install this, it's actually gonna put the steering wheel way too close to me, and that would just be very uncomfortable, not really ideal for driving. So what I'm gonna end up doing is one or two things. I'm gonna see if I can find a different hub adapter here that just isn't like as thick, or I'm gonna see online if I can find a quick release that will attach directly to the steering column here. So we're gonna see which one works out. Anyways, if someone happens to be using this as a guide to replace their steering wheel, what you'd end up doing is, I mean, well, you've already seen on that car how to take off the steering wheel, but I didn't show the clock spring. So essentially you would take off the clamshell, which was just those screws you saw me remove earlier. And then from there, assuming you get a hub that is not compatible with the clock spring, you would remove the clock spring, which is held in by, I believe, 4 holes. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. This top piece would come off when you remove the lower portion of the clamshell, but it's in there just because I have the RPM gauge mounted up. So that'd give you easy access. And then from there, you would just slide the new hub on. They usually have a little marking so you know which side should go up. So this says top on there. And then you would just bolt up whatever you're doing. So if I was doing the quick release, I would get rid of that. This portion I would end up putting on here. And this, again, also has a marking to tell you which side's the top. So it has a little indent right there. So yeah, I would snug this down, probably use some blue Loctite, and then this would get snugged down and attached to the steering wheel. With aftermarket wheels, you're gonna have an airbag light come on, and there's kind of a couple ways to handle it. Some people just choose to ignore it. Another thing you could do is just pull out the fuse. If you come over to the front, this fuse ECU-B, which is this one, can just get pulled out. Now if you come to the inside of the car, the light is gone. From my understanding, that only disables the airbag system on these cars and nothing else. Well, that's all I have for today, but if you want to see more MR2 content, definitely follow along as I have more plans with this car. It's gonna get a harness soon. I'll be putting the flares on the back of the car, doing some bodywork stuff. So really gonna be making progress on this build here. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.